Okay, welcome to week 17 of Exposure. 17. Yeah, I mean, that feels like a little bit of a milestone to me. If this series were a person, then it would be legal for adults to have sex with it in, I think, every state or most states. I don't know why that was the context I had to put this in, but there you go. Yeah, and this series, if you are a first-time viewer / listener, is me putting out an imperfect video every week as an exposure for my OCD perfectionism. And last week was a bit of an unexpected turn for me and for, if you are a regular listener or viewer, you probably as well, because last week I talked about something that I really had not wanted to talk about, which was the... Sorry for the interruption. I am coming to you from the future. Well, it's the present for me, but I uploaded the video you were just watching last night and woke up this morning to find that, and I'm going to use extremely broad terms for reasons that will become obvious, that the platform on which you are viewing this video decided that my video represented a, quote, what was it, a serious risk of causing egregious harm. And so they removed this video. Hopefully this edited version is not removed. They removed the video, penalized me in certain ways, and threatened further penalties that could include not being allowed to be on this platform, which would obviously be catastrophic. I don't have a huge following here by any means, but this platform is, of course, a monopoly and is utterly indispensable for anyone who wants a career as a performer. So I am forced to censor myself, but I will... You can probably guess what the serious risk of causing egregious harm, what my crime was. If you watch last week's exposure, that will make it abundantly clear. Yeah, this is chilling, to say the least. I will just say that what I was saying in this video that, again, constituted a serious risk of an egregious harm was simply that, again, to use the broadest possible terms, there was a new medical condition that suddenly burst upon the epidemiological scene in 2020 that affected virtually everyone. And then in 2021, there was a medical product that was supposed to protect against at least the most serious effects of this condition. And I got this product in 2021. And I am, and at that point, of course, there wasn't a lot of safety data on this product in 2021 because it was a brand new product. You couldn't have long-term safety data. The serious risk of egregious harm, what I said that was so dangerous, was not that this medical product that I got is bad, not that people shouldn't get this medical product. I simply said, and again, I say this at more length in last week's video, that as someone who got this medical product, again, we didn't have long-term data by definition when it was released, but now it's been out for about 3 years. So we could have long-term data on safety and efficacy, and yet there is zero scientific follow-up, particularly on the safety front. Literally zero. I spent hours looking. There is no one is studying if there are potential, just trying to use the broadest terms possible, potential drawbacks with this medical product. And I will say, data suggests that there may be potential drawbacks with this medical product. So my position, my egregiously dangerous position, was that we should be looking into this. We should be doing scientific follow-up 3 years after this medical product came out to see how effective and safe it is long-term. And just saying that constitutes, again, a serious risk of causing egregious harm. And this sort of reinforces, I think, the themes of this video, which is, to some extent, just the world feels like a very dark place right now. And this feels like a very dark thing. Obviously, I'm a tiny, part of this. But free speech is essential to democracy. I don't see how democracy functions without free speech. And should there be some limits? Yes, but they should be very, very circumscribed, those limits. So I hope you enjoy the rest of this video. I apologize that there's no continuity. It's a different day. I haven't showered. I'm wearing a different shirt. Here is past Adam from yesterday. Yeah, Gaza is fucking me up. I don't see how it can't fuck you up if you're paying attention. Yeah. Well, I'll talk about it a little bit, and then I'll bring it back to me. I think clearly what happened on October 7th was atrocious, but what's happened since October 7th is clearly equally atrocious, and in fact, I would say more atrocious in the sense of just even a quantitative sense. An order of magnitude more civilians have died in Gaza than died in Israel. And unless we are deciding that, hey, Israeli lives are worth far more than Palestinian lives, then we have to look at what's happened since October 7th as being quantitatively worse, much worse than what happened on October 7th. And I realize it's kind of absurd couching morality in quantitative terms, but I think we do use those terms, right? I mean, clearly, someone who kills 7 people is deemed more worthy of punishment and less worthy of sympathy than someone who kills 1 person. It is, to some extent, a numbers game. And I think it's important to keep in mind that the vast, vast, vast majority of people who have died in Gaza are innocent. I mean, we're talking well over 10,000 kids. And I think of those kids. They are no more deserving of death than my nephews and nieces who are safe in Boston and Philadelphia. And this is not new. Horrible injustice in the world is not new. What is new is the fact that this is clearly, I would say, the vast majority of the world's population and the U.S. population, based on polls I've seen, there's a consensus that this is wrong, what is happening, that Israel bombing Gaza and attacking Gaza and causing this level of civilian casualties. I think the vast majority of the world's population is against that. And even with that, we can't seem to change the trajectory of this. I, as a U.S. taxpayer, am obviously most infuriated at the U.S. and the Biden administration. I mean, it's insane to me because Biden he's giving Israel a blank check. And then he's saying every once in a while, like, hey, maybe you could try to reduce civilian casualties, but he's still writing them the check. It's like giving your kid, you're letting him borrow your car when you know he's going to drive drunk and hit a few pedestrians, but you keep letting him borrow the car. You're like, please don't drive drunk. And he's like, all right, I'll try not to drive drunk. And then he comes home, blood on the fender. Did you drive drunk again? Yeah, I'm a little drunk right now. All right, well, you have to not do it anymore, but I'll keep lending you the car. It's this insane, insane thing. And the thing that I find the most inexplicable about this is, again, if this were a political calculation, if Biden was saying, okay, I want to get reelected, and this is the position that's going to help me get reelected, is just supporting Israel. No holds barred, whatever I'm trying to say. Just full-throated, full-throttle support for Israel without conditions. There are no conditions, so far as I know, on the aid provided to Israel. There are requests to not mow down pedestrians with their drunken driving, but they're still writing the checks. So that complete and unconditional support of Israel, if that was going to help Biden's re-election campaign, then I'd be like, well, he's a piece of shit for supporting them, but I get why he's doing it. But it's not helping him. All the polling I've seen is that it is going to hurt him. It feels to me like the Biden administration has decided it is more important to keep Netanyahu in power than to keep Biden in power. It is utterly inexplicable. And then this whole thing with South Africa filing this genocide claim. And then just the utter dismissals, the contempt with which this was dismissed by the Biden administration and the Secretary of Defense and Blinken, I think, also, is just, it beggars disbelief, whatever the expression is. Because I don't see how anyone can look at this situation and be like, what's happening is totally, well, I'll use the obvious expression since it's Israel, totally kosher. Let me put it this way. If Biden was a Palestinian trapped in Gaza right now, would he feel like, oh, this is fair what's happening? Now, I understand genocide is a specific legal designation, and it may or may not rise to that level, but to dismiss it out of hand, I mean, on the face of it, you're restricting food and water and medical services to an increasingly desperate civilian population. All right. Anyway, yeah. I think part of why this is affecting me so much is selfish. It shakes my faith in the world. Again, the fact that the world's population does not want this. I don't know what polling is in Israel, but I have to imagine many Israelis don't want this, because this is the other thing. If this were advancing Israel's strategic aims, then, I could understand it. I wouldn't agree with it, but I could understand it. But I don't see how anyone can say that this is not making Israel, putting them in a more perilous position. I don't see how you're not creating a very large number of martyrs. Because basically, most civilians in Gaza probably did not like Israel. But they weren't going to do anything about it. But if you murder someone's entire family, if you destroy their home, if you rip their community to shreds, if you take away everything they have to live for, some of those people are the one thing that they will have to live for is vengeance against you. And when I say you, I actually mean me, because I don't think this is going to stop with Israel. I believe the United States will most likely pay a price for this. And a price in blood. So yeah, it's this horrific thing that is happening that we can't stop it. We all want to stop it. Maybe not all of us, but again, I'm repeating myself. Yeah, I mean, there's no way history is going to look back on this and be like, yeah, that was okay. It was a nuanced thing. It was a nuanced thing initially, maybe. But as the body count just mounts and mounts and mounts, and the just desperation increases there, this is not a nuanced thing anymore. Tens of thousands of civilians are dying. It's not making Israel safer. And again, the Biden administration, it's certainly not helping their chances of re-election. At this point, there is zero chance I will vote for Biden. Zero chance I will vote for him. And I'm well aware, by the way, that Trump would be even more full throttle in his support for Israel, but I'm not voting for Trump either. Anyway, I guess the net effect of all this stuff, though, is it does feel like some loss of innocence. And I laugh because I'm almost 50. That's ridiculous, but I've, I guess, been very lucky. Up until very recently, I have seen basically I have seen the challenges I face as uniquely personal. My challenges are my OCD, my mental health generally, my anxiety, all these, emotional difficulties, challenges I've had. Basically working with, I think, a nervous system that probably is extremely sensitive and for better and for worse. And have just, by which I mean, not like, I'm a sensitive artist, I just mean I have very, very strong physical reactions to a lot of stimuli. And so learning how to work with that has been a lifetime process, and it is an ongoing process. But that's what I've seen as my challenge. It's sort of like what's happening in the world doesn't really affect me. But yeah, like it's at a point now where this stuff does affect me more deeply. It's like at some level, no matter how well my personal life is going, I'm not going to be totally okay as long as this horror is unfolding in Gaza. Listen, I'm not saying I'm losing sleep over it. Have I lost sleep over it? I think about it when I wake up in the night. Clearly, I am not suffering as much as people in Gaza. I don't think I'm suffering as much as the people dropping the bombs. Maybe they're not consciously suffering now, but they're going to pay a very high price for this, a horrifically high price for this. But yeah, it feels like we're all citizens of the world. And in some way, it feels like this is on all of our karmic report cards. If we're sitting by watching this happening and doing nothing, I mean, again, I'm posting videos, but doing nothing, not changing the trajectory of this. Yeah, I have to imagine future generations, if there are future generations, sometimes it feels that grim, are going to be like, dude, how did you not stop this? How did you not? And let me be clear, I don't know the long-term solution. I mean, yeah, I don't know the long-term solution. But it seems very clear that a ceasefire is a good first step. Stop killing huge numbers of civilians for no real benefit for anyone other than not Netanyahu. Obviously, this benefits him tremendously. He was going to go to trial for corruption. I think that's still happening at some point, but certainly that is not the news out of Israel now. Okay. But yeah, I don't want to pretend that this is the thing that is dominating my life, but it is there. Yeah, what's been dominating my life? Good stuff, writing, working on this new show that will be premiering soon in San Francisco. Spending time with Anna, but that has been, I was going to say unexpectedly challenging. I guess spending time with Anna, my partner specifically, is what has been unexpectedly challenging. Unexpectedly because there's no problems in this relationship. Things are great. Things are wonderful. And there's a part of me that just wants to walk away. It's the craziest thing, the thing I would least expect. And this is, I think, a lot of what my new show is going to be about. Is, yeah, the story of this partnership is, in some ways, I got exactly what I wanted. For so long, I wanted a deep partnership, and I found it. And the incredible thing is, I have no doubts about this woman. I was certain of one thing, that when I found someone, of course there'd be uncertainty, because I have decision-making OCD much better, but it's not entirely gone, and this is a big decision. Arguably the biggest decision most of us make is whom to commit to if we're going to be in a committed partnership. So I assumed that I would be like, I'm not sure about her, but I have none of that with her. This is exactly what I fantasized it would be like for all the years I was alone. Having a very loving, very, very smart, very beautiful partner. Very supportive partner. There's nothing lacking. There are no boxes she doesn't check. And yet, a part of me just wants to walk away. A part of me, I think I've shared before on these videos, WIBLI, it's an acronym I invented, and it stands W-W-I-B-L-I, that when I write it out in my notebook, I write W-I-B-L-Y, WIBLI. What would it be like if? And it's comparing whatever reality I'm in with an imagined reality. And with women in the past, I would WIBLI them. I'd be like, what would it be like if we had better conversation? What would it be like if, they were smarter or I found them more attractive? Basically finding flaws. And with Anna, I don't do any of that. But what I've been WIBLIing more and more is what would it be like if she were not in my life? What would it be like if I went back to the way things were for all those lonely, lonely years where I was so lonely I thought I just couldn't take it anymore? I so desperately wanted to find someone, and I found someone, and she's amazing, and part of me, a not small part of me, wants to go back to being alone. And the obvious conclusion is it's because I'm scared. I don't even realize consciously how vulnerable I am. I imagine in the same way someone, climbing up like a perilous rock face like El Capitan, because I'm obsessed with Yosemite now. It's not, you can't be thinking like, if I fuck up, I die. Like that's somewhere in your mind to keep you focused, but if you're thinking that every moment, you're paralyzed, you can't move. And I think it's the same with this relationship. I'm not consciously thinking, I'm protecting myself from the conscious awareness of how vulnerable I am, because if I were fully aware of how vulnerable I am, I would freeze on that metaphorical rock face. Or I would let go and plummet. I don't know exactly what the metaphor is there, but I would, fight, flight, or freeze. I would either freeze or more likely, I would flight. I would fly away. And that's the impulse that's coming up. And the specific place this part wants me to fly away to is my parents' place in Boston. My father, mother, sister, brother-in-law, my nephews and nieces, they all live in a 2-family house, and there's so much love there, and it's such a safe form of love. It's very, very safe. They can't hurt me. I mean, they could hurt me, but I know they won't hurt me. Yeah. And so this fear has been manifesting in different ways as just sort of this fear of Anna, like just a general discomfort at times. But yeah, this desire to just kind of, walk away. And I'm not going to choose that because I know I saw a great friend who I hadn't seen in a long time last week. And I was telling him this, and I was telling him how, like, sometimes I go into this, I imagine like, oh, what if like Anna and I, neither of us texted each other again, Like we text many, many times a day. And what if tomorrow she just doesn't text me and I don't text her and we don't text the next day and we just drift apart? And when I think of this, it's an absurd scenario, but when I think of this, I feel like, yeah, that would be fine. I wouldn't even miss her. And my friend Kirk pointed out, like, yeah, that doesn't really mean anything. It's one thing to imagine not having someone in your life and to feel okay when you imagine that. It's very different if they're not in your life. And of course, he's right. And of course, the terrifying thing is I do not know how I would live without this woman. And the wonderful thing is I think a lot of people feel that way. I don't know how I can live without this person, but yet they can't live with that person because there's just fundamental incompatibilities or because there's logistical hurdles. One of them is married or something. There are no barriers here. There are really no barriers. We're incredibly compatible. But I'm just scared. And yeah. And it's not just that part of me wants to walk away. I'm afraid this part is trying to sabotage the relationship. And one way I think it's doing this is by displaying anger around Anna. Anger has been a lifelong challenge for me. But I've gotten a lot of freedom from it because the more willing you are. So again, as I said earlier, anger exists to protect from fear and or loss. Those are the two primary, quote unquote, negative emotions in my conception, is fear/anxiety and loss/grief. Those are the two biggies. I think you can probably group everything under those two. And so anger exists to protect us from fear or loss/sadness. And as I've been more and more willing to accept fear and loss in my body, where they are, which is where all emotions are, and I touch my chest because that's where I experience them, then the anger has fallen away largely because I'm experiencing the thing the anger was trying to prevent me from experiencing, so the anger doesn't have any work to do. It's too late. I'm experiencing it. And also in IFS, internal family systems, when I do my own sort of parts work, I talk to the anger part. And I thank it for trying so hard to keep me safe. And I tell it that unless if I'm in physical danger, it can just relax now. It's done a great job keeping me safe. And now it's okay if I feel sadness. It's okay if I feel fear. But I've been expressing more anger, not towards Anna, but around her. And I know this is extremely difficult for her. She, has some physical abuse in her past, largely at the hands, literally, of her grandfather. And this is not an unusual thing in Greece. This is a very, very common thing in Greece. I think it's actually probably uncommon that her parents didn't beat her. I mean, it was just an accepted thing. One of the stories she's told me is her grandfather once beat the crap out of Anna and beat the crap out of a friend she was with. And the friend's father came over to the house and thanked the grandfather for beating his daughter. So, even though I've never expressed physical anger towards Anna or any other woman, seeing me get angry is scary for her. And I can be violent, not towards her, but towards inanimate objects, and that is very scary. About a year ago, there was an episode where I was very frustrated after a painful stand-up set where I didn't do what I wanted to do, and I punched the steering wheel, And she told me afterwards that when I did that, she tensed up because she thought the next thing was I was going to hit her. And that broke my heart. She knew rationally I wasn't going to hit her, but that was her reaction because in the past her grandfather would get angry and then bang, she's getting whipped. So I know that and when she told me, I was like, okay, I can never do this again. I can never get angry in that way again around her. And I generally haven't, but recently I have. On Saturday morning, we woke up together and I was trying to make a phone call and my phone wasn't working. And it was calling into like an online meeting, an obsessive compulsive anonymous meeting, which I rarely call into these 12-step OCD meetings because the OCD is so minimal now, but I really love these Saturday morning meetings. And I try to call in and my phone was acting up and this is so, I mean, it's embarrassing because it's so juvenile. I punched my phone, not hard enough to break it, you know. I'm an adult. I don't want to break my phone, but I'm a little baby. I want to express my anger. And I did that in front of her and I knew it was going to be upsetting for her and I did it anyway. And then predictably, I felt shame around it. But yeah, I was reflecting afterwards and I was like, I don't think I would have done that if she weren't there. But it's tricky. So I think part of it is a part of me trying to push her away. But the other part is this is a very old pattern because I would often express great distress and anger around my mother. And I think part of that was this juvenile, this at that time literally infantile idea that if I scream loudly enough, mommy will fix things. So, yeah. Yeah, a part of me wants to run. A part of me wants to end it. A part of me hopes she ends it. And it's the most wonderful thing I've ever experienced, unquestionably. It really is. Yeah, I mean, and that's also part of the fear. You know, when I tell, like she says, well, if this doesn't work out, you know, the fact you've been able to do this with me and open your heart, you can do that with someone else. And I call bullshit on that. I think she is irreplaceable. I mean, I'm not saying I would never find someone else, but yeah, someone who this level of compatibility in every domain, intellectual, emotional, sexual, spiritual, every domain. We just have a great time together. And so the more wonderful she is, the more irreplaceable I perceive her to be, the more terrifying the possibility that she could turn from an is to an isn't, that I could lose her. But yeah, of course I'm going to keep saying yes to this. But it is a choice. That's the astonishing thing to me. It is even as perfect as this relationship is, and it really is as perfect as I can imagine a relationship being, I still have to consciously choose to say yes to it. It's not an automatic yes. So, all right. Well, week 17. Stay tuned for next week, 18, when this thing can vote. And it's definitely not voting for fucking Biden, unless if he radically changes his policy towards Israel.